Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kelly Kravitz, and I am the director of our Highly Mobile and At-Risk Student Programs Division. We are thrilled that you were joining us this afternoon for our second Zoom presentation of the 21-22 school year. So we will go ahead and give folks a few seconds, a minute or so, to make sure we get everyone included in today's presentation that's going to be joining us, and then we will go ahead and get started. Thank you for giving us time of your afternoon today. And we are seeing a good afternoon in the chat, so thank you all again for joining us. And just as a reminder, our resource page for today's webinar is available, and so Jordan has provided that link. So all of the different resources and things that we're going to be referencing today are going to be on that sheet for your quick viewing and access. So we're going to be meeting for the next hour and a half. We have a lot to get through, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So this is our special populations vision statement. This is why we exist. We equip school systems to increase awareness, to promote equitable access, and to improve outcomes for all special populations. Specifically today presenting, we are the Highly Mobile and At-Risk Student Programs Division. And so the work streams within our division include work with military-connected students, homeless children and youth through our Texas Education for Homeless Children and Youth program, child abuse and neglect, which includes work that we're doing around human trafficking prevention and awareness, pregnancy-related services, foster care and student success, as well as all things at-risk students. So again, thank you for joining us today. So really quickly, just wanted to kind of give you a highlight of what we're going to be going over today. In our presentations, we provide you updates, we provide you reminders and key information to support you in most effectively serving our students. And so in today's presentation, we're going to be giving you updates concerning pregnancy-related services. We're then going to be providing you updates on military-connected students. From there, we're going to transition to McKinney-Vento with some program and grant updates. Foster care and student success, and then at-risk awareness and general updates, and then we'll have a closing towards the end with some resources and places to go for more information. And with that, I want to turn it over to my standout team to introduce themselves. So Cal, would you like to go ahead and kick us off?
Sure, thank you, Kelly. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cal Lopez, and I am the state coordinator for the Texas Education for Homeless Children and Youth program, and excited to be here with you this afternoon.
Great, thanks, Cal. And Jordan?
Hi, everyone. I'm the Special Projects Coordinator for the division. I oversee our military-connected programs, our pregnancy-related services program, and I support the division as a whole.
Great, thanks so much, Jordan. And LaTrenda?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is LaTrenda Watson. I'm the At-Risk State Coordinator, and I support foster care and student success and dropout prevention.
Awesome. Thanks, team. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jordan for some general housekeeping and updates.
So for this webinar, if you've attended our previous webinars, you'll notice we're doing a couple of things different this time around. So we are going to be using the Q&A function in Zoom for all of your questions. So if you have a question, please use the Q&A function, and that's on the bottom of your toolbar. It says Q&A, it's got little chat bubbles in it. So click that and submit any questions that you have. If you have any comments, you can put those in the chat, but we encourage you to put all questions in the Q&A. Makes things easier for me so I can sort through them more easily. Again, the resource document for this webinar is now located on our webinar page. So I've added that link into the chat, so you should be able to access that immediately and download it if you want as well. This presentation is currently being recorded. We post all of our presentations, all of our webinars on our webinars and trainings webpage, along with other trainings that we have. And the PDF of the presentation will also be posted on the webpage along with the resource links that are already there. So that'll be posted within the next week or so, depending on Thanksgiving holiday. So be on the lookout for that. So you will receive access to all of the slides, all of the information, and the recording for the training. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Jordan. With that, Jordan's going to go ahead and kick us off with our pregnancy-related service update section. Thanks, Jordan.
Okay, so wanted to provide you some updates as well as a little bit of an overview as to what pregnancy-related services is. If you're not aware, maybe your district already provides PRS services or maybe they don't, but I wanted to provide some background and information for you today. Go to the next slide. Okay, so pregnancy-related services are the support services provided by a school to a pregnant student during the pregnancy, prenatal, and postpartum periods. Part of pregnancy-related services is compensatory education home instruction. Can we click one more ahead and we'll see? Yep, there we go. So if your district offers pregnancy-related services, they will need to offer compensatory education home instruction, which I call CHI. That's the acronym for that. And CHI is the face-to-face academic services provided to the student at the home or the hospital bedside when the student has a medical reason not to attend classes during the prenatal or postpartum periods. So if your district offers PRS, oh, can we go back one slide? If your district offers PRS, they must offer CHI as well. PRS services are for the pregnant mother only. And for each student that you serve, you receive a 2.41 weighted funding. So this is a significant amount of funding that you receive for these students. Okay, so on our next slide, we have a question. Why should my LEA offer PRS services? Well, for one, we know that identification of students and providing them services is incredibly important and a strong way to prevent dropout of these students. And additionally, your LEA receives an additional 2.41 weighted funding for each student served, which is a great deal of money to be able to generate for these students. Also, I'm not sure if you know this, but LEAs that serve pregnant students through general education homebound do not receive additional PRS funding. So this is basically, you're already providing student services. So if you provide PRS, like a couple of additional services, you'll begin to generate that 2.41 weighted funding. So that's a great incentive to provide these services to students. You'll prevent dropout, keep students engaged, and support them overall. So I wanted to provide a little bit of an outlook as to what our pregnancy-related services look like in Texas. As you can see in this chart, our blue bar represents the total number of pregnant teens aged 15 to 19 in Texas. These may be students in Texas public schools. We can't necessarily say that all of them are, but we have to assume that the majority of them are in Texas public schools. So when we look at the orange bar next to the blue bar, those are our number of students who are being served by PRS services. As you can tell, that number is significantly lower than the actual number of pregnant students that we have in the state. And as you can see, the birth rate has been decreasing in teens, which is great news, but our PRS services have also been decreasing. And you may ask yourself, well, is this a proportional decrease? Are PRS services, decreasing at the same rate as the teen birth rate is? And unfortunately, the answer is no. If we go to the next slide, we can see that in 2012, 36% of pregnant teens were receiving PRS services. And in 2019, that number had dropped to only 22%. So while the birth rate is declining, we are also seeing we're serving a smaller percentage of our pregnant students overall. So I really encourage you to, if your district isn't providing these services, to really look into doing so and serving these students so that we can prevent dropout. Speaking of dropout, I'm not sure if you knew, national data has revealed that only 1/2 of teen mothers receive a high school diploma by age 22. That number is really hard to hear. These students need a ton of support in order to stay in school. And with that data point, we also, in 2019, the Texas legislature passed HB3, and part of what was in HB3, out of all the other things, was the addition of a pregnancy leaver code. So Code 8 now covers students, either female or male, who have withdrew due to pregnancy. So just be on the lookout for these students. If they are dropping out, make sure you're coding them appropriately. We only had 34 students coded under this leaver reason in 2020, and that number may be higher. So just make sure that you're looking out for this. Okay, so now I wanted to jump into some of our virtual instruction options for PRS students. We get this question a lot. How can we serve our students remotely if they want to be remote? And there are a couple of options that are available to them. There are 3 specifically, like the slide says. One of the things is just providing them virtual instruction through SB 15. So this would mean that the student has to meet all of the requirements under SB 15, and they would be served daily through a synchronous or asynchronous instruction method. They would have to meet all of the other criteria to be eligible for full-time virtual instruction. And they would also, if they received a majority of their instructional time through the remote method, they would also count towards that LEA's 10% cap. So this is one option, but we know that not all PRS students may qualify for this option. So we have a couple of more different ways that you can serve them virtually. If you go to the next slide, we can review remote conferencing. So this is definitely a good option for students. Pregnant students can qualify for 20 days of remote instruction. And this is synchronous for 4 hours every school day. And PRS students can actually receive an extension of this 20 days with a doctor's note that covers whatever pregnancy reason that they need to be served under remote conferencing. So this would go through the other waiver, and this can also be extended to the newborn if the newborn is experiencing complications as well. And just note that fear of COVID cannot be a medical reason to receive an extension of remote conferencing. And then finally, remote homebound instruction is probably the one that we get the most questions about. For remote homebound, this would mean that the student is receiving 4 hours every 1 week of instruction. And this method requires a waiver, and the student has to meet certain criteria to be eligible for remote homebound instruction. One of these criteria is that the student must be experiencing prenatal or postpartum complications and receive a doctor's note for remote PRS stating a medical reason why they cannot be served by in-person CHI. So this is very specific to PRS. We review all the doctor's notes that come in for this, so it has to meet this qualifying criteria. Or the student can also be medically fragile and meet that definition of medically fragile. And that definition is included in section 12.3.3 of the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook. So if your student qualifies for this, you'll submit a waiver per student. And there's more information on how to submit those waivers in the State Waivers Guidebook. And also, I wanted to announce that we have released an FAQ that covers all of this information that I just talked about. To go to the next slide. This FAQ is now available on the PRS webpage. It covers virtual instruction this year, considering SB 15. This recently came out this month. So I encourage you to check that out and see what the options are for your students. And that will also be posted on the COVID updates webpage. We're currently getting in review for that webpage. So right now, go to the PRS webpage and you'll find it at the very top there. Okay, so that was all of the PRS updates. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A and we'll answer them at the end of the Military Connected Student Update section as well. So I am going to continue on and provide you some updates on military connected students. So the first reminder that I wanted to provide is for PEIMS identification. Our students need to be identified at enrollment, and there are certain criteria that they may meet to be identified as a military connected student. For students in kindergarten through 12th grade, if the student is a dependent of a current or former member of the U.S. military, the Texas National Guard, or a reserve force, they would be considered military connected. Also, students who were dependents of a member of the U.S. military who has fallen in the line of duty, they also qualify as military connected. So this covers students under active duty, veterans, or former members who were killed in the line of duty. For pre-K students, this is quite similar. It's just worded a little bit differently. So pre-K students have to be a dependent of an active duty member of the armed forces or the reserve forces. And they could also be a child who is a dependent of a member of the armed forces or the reserve forces who was killed in the line of duty. So, so they're a little bit different, but I just wanted to note that we need to be looking out for students of veterans, active duty, and former members as well. So we do have a resource available to help you make sense of this coding. This is on our Military Connected Students webpage and also in the resource guide. So this really walks you through what is required to code students in Texas specifically. We have a couple of unique coding situations here. So take a look at this and make sure that you know how to code your students properly. So a couple of legislative updates. We went through these in our last webinar, but I wanted to provide a little bit more detail. We now are going to have a state advisory council for the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission. So this is really awesome. We're going to have at least 11 different people who will be part of this council, and they will be overseeing how the state interacts and complies with the Interstate Compact for Educational Opportunity for Military Children. So if you want more information, there are some links in the resource guide, but just know we are working really hard to improve transition support for military children, and this is really going to be a great way that the Interstate Compact will be supported in the state. One other update that that happened in our last legislative session was HB 4124. That allowed, that really covered two different schools, Texas Tech University K through 12 and UT High School. So these are both online schools that Texas students can enroll in. And this bill made it so that these schools could prioritize military connected students for enrollment. So this is up to the school, but it's a possibility that they could be doing this on their wait lists. One other important change that happened was that students who were formerly enrolled in school in Texas can now enroll in these schools even if they've left the state due to a parent's active duty military deployment or transfer. So I know it's a little bit complicated, but it's basically if a student who is the dependent of an active duty member of the US military, if they move out of state and say they were in the middle of their school year and they want to continue going to a Texas school at that other state, they could enroll in, say, Texas Tech University and continue school online. So that is just an option for students that is available now. If we go to the next slide, we can see that these schools can now receive funding for students who are in these situations. So even if the student is out of state, the school can still receive funding for that student. And if they end up receiving that funding, the district cannot charge tuition for that student. So that student will still go to school for free, just like any other student. So if we go to the next slide, we can see Texas Virtual School Network also offers this benefit for military connected students. So this was really a change for those last two schools that we talked about, and it just kind of aligns with the allowances that Texas Virtual Schools Network already has. So students can enroll in one or more courses or enroll full-time if they are a dependent of a member of the U.S. military, was previously enrolled in high school in the state, and doesn't reside in the state due to a military deployment or transfer. So as you can see, it's very much the same, but now, this is just an option for virtual instruction for students in general. Okay, so those were all of my updates. I'm going to pause for questions. Blanca asked, where is the waiver located for PRS? So that will be in the TEAL system. So if you go to the main TEA webpage, there's a link at the top that takes you to TEAL. You'll get an account and you can apply for waivers there. You may have someone in the district that already does this, so I definitely recommend reaching out to them. But yeah, so you'll be submitting other waivers for those PRS allowances specifically. Elizabeth asked, what about seniors who've enlisted in the military? Do they get coded as military connected? I don't believe that is the case. This is just for dependents of members of the military. But I do believe that those who have been coded, or those who have enlisted, would be coded under certain college and career military coding. And I'm not sure how that specifically works out, but I would definitely reach out to them if you have any questions about that. If the military parent passed away, would they still qualify? Is there a time limit? I'm not sure if you mean for the virtual instruction, or if this is for a PEIMS coding question. So maybe reach out to me about that, Norma, and we can work that out together. I see a couple of questions in the chat. Are there any specific requirements or supports that must be documented or maintained for TEA audit purposes for the military connected students who don't meet at-risk criteria? I'm not sure about that. April, get back to me on that as well. I'm not sure about at-risk, or how those two things meld together. Does Texas State Guard count as military connected? Yes, it does. So I believe that was a recent addition. So yes, Texas National Guard does count. Stacy provided the link to the PRS waiver, so I can post that and provide that to you guys. For students out of state, will the courses be completely online? How does that work exactly? Yeah, so the two districts that I talked about, UT High School and Texas Tech Online, these are completely online courses. So those would be, so like if they're out of state, it would just be completely online. It would be fine. Okay. I think we can move on from here for the sake of time. If there's any other questions that come up, put them in the Q&A and we can follow up in our Q&A following. We post them on our webpage as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Cal to talk about McKinney-Vento updates.
Thank you, Jordan. All right, well, we're excited to share several McKinney-Vento updates with you this afternoon. But first, we wanted to start off with sharing that November is National Homelessness Awareness Month. So first, we wanted to thank everybody in the audience for everything that you do to help increase awareness and support our students and families who are experiencing homelessness not just in November, but throughout the school year. So in the spirit of increasing awareness in November regarding homelessness, we're going to go over some national and state data. We're going to touch base on some McKinney-Vento 101 training resources. We're going to provide some ARP grant updates, and we're going to share some information about our regional McKinney-Vento liaisons. So here on this first slide, we wanted to go ahead and share with you some national data regarding the homeless student identification. And so the national data is always a couple of years behind. So the most recent data is the 2018-19 data, where you can see that it did drop slightly from 2017-18, but we do attribute that to part of the 17-18 was the year that Texas was impacted by Hurricane Harvey, and other states were also impacted by hurricanes. The 2019 data, 19-20 data, as soon as it becomes available, we will be sharing that with you in future trainings. On the next slide, we're going to go ahead and share with you our Texas statewide data. So we have been able to provide you 4 years of statewide data. And again, 2017-18 school year, we had a very large increase in student identification, but that was due to the impact of Hurricane Harvey. And so you can see that the other 3 years outside of 2017-18 has remained close within about 2,000 to 3,000 within identification. And we hope to be able to release the 2020-21 data here in December or early January. But we wanted to go ahead and share this information with you today. On our next slide, I'm really excited to announce that we did have a McKinney-Vento 101 on October 19th. And we're going to go ahead and walk through all the resources that are posted on our TEA McKinney-Vento webpage. So this was the McKinney-Vento 101 from October 19th. And the webinar recording is posted on our TEA webpage. You will see that it does say YouTube next to it, and that is correct. As part of the agency's process, it is a YouTube video to ensure that we are able to add closed captioning once we post the recording. The slide deck should be posting early next week. We're hoping to have that posted on Monday on our McKinney-Vento resource section, 101 resource section of the webpage. But currently the sample student residency questionnaire, the sample intake form, the immunization flow chart, the sample transportation letter, dispute resolution resources, posters, and infographics. All the resources that we shared during that webinar are now posted on our TEA webpage. So here on our next slide, these are 2 of the documents that we did provide during the training and are on our website. So this is a screenshot of our student residency questionnaire, and then a screenshot of both the front and back page of the intake form. And so we highly encourage everyone, if you're not familiar with the resources, to visit our webpage. And so you will be able to download a PDF of these documents. And then on our next slide, we also uploaded the immunization chart that Matt walks you through the provisional enrollment resource. And so we wanted to share that students without an immunization record, this does apply to students who are homeless, but also to our military connected students and our foster care students. And you can now access this directly on our TEA I-TEHCY McKinney-Vento webpage. And then we're excited to share, we did provide a sample school of origin transportation letter during the McKinney-Vento 101. And it is a sample letter that you can provide to the parent or guardian once they have been approved and have set up school of origin transportation. It gives you some examples of how to include student information, busing information, no call guidance, and McKinney-Vento and transportation program contact information. So many of you have been asking for a sample letter. And so we have developed this, incorporated it into our training, and have it posted on our website. Next, we wanted to go ahead and share that we do have a TEA McKinney-Vento dispute resolution process and FAQ resource page. So this is again on our TEA webpage, and we've gone ahead and included the screenshot that walks you through the dispute resolution process, and it also has a FAQ information. And so we just wanted to share that if a dispute is not resolved locally And that means locally, meaning to go to all 3 dispute levels, a complaint may be filed with TEA. And so only disputes that have gone through all 3 levels of the local dispute process will be reviewed by TEA, and TEA's decisions regarding the disputes are final. And so we've outlined this on the webpage, and this is also ties in with the slide deck and the recording that we provided during the 101 webinar. So to help support you with that, TEA has collaborated with the Texas Association of School Boards to develop some resources that help walk you through the dispute resolution process. And they recently updated these resources and issued them in September of 2021. So we're excited to continue our collaboration with TASB, and we wanted to share that these resources are also posted under the McKinney-Vento 101 resource page. And the next is our McKinney-Vento infographic and our posters. And so they're also on our webpage. They have been there before, but we wanted to go ahead and highlight them as part of the McKinney-Vento 101 resource package. So as part of increasing awareness McKinney-Vento during November, we would like you to utilize our infographic that provides data. It provides state level data on identification of our students experiencing homelessness over the past 3 years, their living situation, their dual identification for special populations, and our graduation rate. And our posters are also in a downloadable PDF version in both English and Spanish. So now we're going to go ahead and move forward to the American Rescue Plan, Homeless Children and Youth Phase 1 and Phase 2 grants. And I know we did share this slide in our first webinar of the year, but we wanted to go ahead and share it again because we do have some updates. So for some of you who weren't able to attend our first highly mobile webinar, we wanted to let you know that these funds are designated to supplement the McKinney-Vento Education for Homeless Children and Youth funds that we receive from the U.S. Department of Education every year. These grants will be administered by the Office of the State Coordinator, and states must allocate at least 75% of the allocations to LEAs, and states may reserve 25% of this funding for state level activities. So we also wanted to let you know we've received a total grant award of a little over $81 million. And we're going to give some updates mainly about Phase 1 and some exciting news to come about Phase 2. So on our next slide, you've seen this slide before. For Phase 1, we have allocated 82% of our funds to LEAs, and the remaining 8%, which is a little over 3.6 million, for our statewide activities as part of Phase 1. So just before we move into the American Rescue Plan, we did want to lay some foundational information. So we completed our competitive grant process late this summer. And so our competitive grant process is on a 3-year grant cycle. And so our new 21-22 Texas Education for Homeless Children and Youth grant was awarded approximately $8.3 million in grant funds to 92 subgrantees, serving a total of 214 LEAs. So we wanted to share this information because all our new subgrantees, if you go to the next slide, thank you, are eligible for an ARP Homeless I-TEHCY supplemental grant. So this is a grant that is 100% funded under the American Rescue Plan. Its grant purpose and intent is to increase funding to our 21-22 TEHCY grantees to address the unique needs of homeless children and youth due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is a 3-year funding cycle starting on September 1st through August 31st of 2024. And I'm excited to provide an update. So here it says anticipated grant posting date is mid-November. We are anticipating this grant posting tomorrow, Friday, November 18th, with an anticipated application due date the first week of February. So we are anticipating that this grant will be posting tomorrow, and you can always check the grant opportunities page. So for our current subgrantees, we will be sending you a notification once the grant has posted. And yes, sorry, today is November 18th. Tomorrow, Friday, November 19th. Yes, so tomorrow, November 19th is the anticipated grant posting date. Thank you for sharing that in the chat. Oh, can we just go back to that slide one last time? Thank you. So again, this is for all our eligible 21-22 subgrantees. Our anticipated grant funding amount is approximately $16.7 million. And the way that we came to that amount is each subgrantee, we are taking your total grant award and doubling that amount as your eligible grant award for this application. And so on the grant opportunities page, when the application posts, and again, we anticipate that for tomorrow, Friday, November 19th, it will be posting with the program guidelines, application part 1 and 2, and also an eligibility list that will list your eligible grant amount. And then we also wanted to share that pre-award costs with a start date as of September 1st is applicable to this grant. We're also excited to share that our second ARP Homeless One grant, in which we're utilizing our statewide funds, has posted for our ESC capacity building supplemental grant. So the funding source, it's 100% out of the American Rescue Plan. It is to assist for ESCs to assist the agency with ARP Homeless One statewide activities to support implementation of the I-TEHCY program services. The funding cycle is also a 3-year funding cycle from September 1st of 2021 to August 31st of 2024. The grant posting date, this grant posted for the ESCs on October 29th, and their grant application due date is January 3rd. So eligible applicants are all 20 ESCs. The total grant funding amount is $3 million over the 3-year grant period. And so each ESC is eligible for a grant of $150,000, and pre-award costs are also applicable and start as of September 1st. So we're glad to share this information for ARP Homeless One, and that our statewide activity grant under our ESC capacity building grant has posted. And again, we anticipate our I-TEHCY supplemental grant to be posting tomorrow. On our next slide, we just wanted to provide you some updates regarding the American Rescue Plan Phase 2 grants. And we did receive a little over $61 million. And we are proceeding with developing an e-grant. We have allocated approximately 90% of the grant funds to go to LEAs through a non-competitive grant. And then the remaining funds will be allocated for statewide activities, which is a little over $6 million. So here on this next slide, this gives you a little more information about the ARP Homeless 2 grants that we anticipate releasing in mid-January. Again, it is 100% funded under the American Rescue Plan. The grant purpose and intent is funding for all LEAs to address the unique needs of homeless children and youth due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. This will be an e-grant application. Our anticipated grant posting date is January of 2022. Eligible applicants. LEAs are eligible to apply for an individual grant if their ARP Homeless 2 allocation is at least $5,000. LEAs are required to join a shared service arrangement if their allocation is less than $5,000. So once this grant posts in mid-January on our e-grant system, we will publish the eligible grant amounts for all LEAs. So all LEAs will be eligible for this grant. This is not a competitive grant. And of course, our total grant funding is $55 million. So we're excited to provide these updates to you, and we highly encourage you to sign up for our TEA newsletters, our grant newsletters, our McKinney-Vento newsletters, our highly mobile and at-risk newsletters, because that's how we'll continue to provide updates about our grants and any future trainings. On our next slide, we wanted to go ahead, we talked about our ESC capacity building grant, and we're excited to share our regional McKinney-Vento liaison contacts. So we do have this information posted on our TEA McKinney-Vento webpage. So there's a listing of all our regional McKinney-Vento contacts, and here we're highlighting ESCs 1 through 10. I did want to share that we are going to be updating the contact for ESC Region 1 our contact has transitioned to a new position this week. And so we will be updating that information on our webpage. And now if you go to the next slide, are our regional McKinney-Vento contacts for ESC regions 11 through 20. So we highly encourage you to reach out to your regional McKinney-Vento liaisons. They are a great resource to help assist with technical assistance. And we are also collaborating with them closely as we move forward with developing our future trainings and resources to support McKinney-Vento, both from a state level lens, a regional lens, and also to meet local needs. So our regional McKinney-Vento liaisons have collaborated us closely when we redesigned the McKinney-Vento one, which we provided in October, and they are working with us right now as we speak, providing input and feedback as we move forward with redesigning and updating our McKinney-Vento 201 and additional future trainings. So we wanted to share this information. And again, it is provided, all their contact information, their website information. They all have regional McKinney-Vento liaison web pages, which we encourage you to utilize as well, because as part of one of their grant requirements is to provide regional resources to help increase awareness and support our students, our families, our school districts regarding McKinney-Vento liaison services. And we are now going to go ahead and pause for any comments or questions.
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions around the grants.
Okay.
And so Michelle asked, about how much money is suggested or allocated per McKinney-Vento student? For example, $100 or $150.
So it depends on the grant. So I would have to go back, and I don't have the formula off the top of my head right there. It is a formula funding, and so we will be publishing the information regarding that for ARP2. So that's a great question, and more information will be posted on the webpage. Now that's for ARP2. For ARP1, our competitive subgrantees, their amount was based on their competitive award amount, and their eligible amount was based on a formula of $110 per homeless student, and that's identified homeless students. And so that eligibility list from our original competitive grant that just occurred is still published on our TEA grants opportunities page.
Okay, Susanna says that she doesn't have access to e-grants. Will the ARP Homeless McKinney-Vento grant be submitted only on e-grants?
Yes, so you would need to work with your contacts in your financial office regarding who does have access to the e-grants. So that is a designation that is provided locally at each school district. So you would need to work with your grants department about whom has access to complete that information and whether you can get that access in preparation for the e-grant. But that's a great question.
Anna asked, is phase 2 also for 3 years?
So we are in the process of developing that right now and finalizing that. So once it is released, we'll be mapping that out as well. So again, since we're still in the planning stages of that grant and developing that, we'll share some more information as soon as it's available.
Okay. Jennifer asked, is the SSA McKinney-Vento ESSA threshold $7,500?
So the SSA threshold for the ARP2 e-grant would be $5,000. I believe the $7,500 that you're referring to is from a previous grant, but for the ARP2 SSA threshold, it would be $5,000.
Brenda asked, how are students selected according to their needs to receive funds? Are all homeless students considered to be qualified for support?
So within the formula, we go back to our PEIMS coding. So the PEIMS coding that has been submitted in previous years is how the formula is calculated. And so the students per se would not receive direct funding, they would be receiving services. And so that would be based on a needs assessment that occurs locally on how to best serve the students experiencing homelessness within your district.
Last question, Liz asked, if we are part of an SSA, do we need to file a separate application?
Okay, so can you repeat that question again?
If we are part of an SSA, do we need to file a separate application?
So if you're a part of an SSA, I'll give you an example. So our ESCs are often the physical agent for a shared service arrangement, and they would be the ones coordinating the submission of that application. Now, I just did want to clarify that you cannot apply for an individual grant, and as part of an SSA or a shared service arrangement, you can only apply through one application type, either individually or through an SSA. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have one more from Marva. She asked, will the TEHCY supplemental grant be in e-grants, or will it be a separate application like the TEHCY grant?
So for our Homeless One TEHCY supplemental grant, that will be a paper grant. For our Homeless 2, that will be an e-grant. These are all great questions. Any more, Jordan?
I think that's it for now. If you have any more, go ahead and put them in there and we can follow up via the Q&A document.
Yes, definitely. All right, yes, we can check back towards the end to see if there are any other questions. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And now we'll go ahead and transition over to LaTrenda.
Good afternoon, everyone. So now we'll go into foster care and student success updates. So let's talk about students in foster care. Just want to give a brief little overview of what is considered foster care. So foster care refers to children and youth who are in custody of the state of Texas due to abuse, neglect, regardless of their living arrangements. So for the school purposes, this term is includes students who are in kinship care, where DFPS, the Department of Family and Protective Services, is the managing conservator. So DFPS has conservatorship of those students. So we consider those students foster care. Also, a court grants legal custody of the student to DFPS if it is determined that the student cannot safely remain with the parent or the legal guardian. And DFPS secures a relative or a foster home or other setting to ensure that the student's safety and well-being. So that's why DFPS takes the custody of the student, because of any forms of neglect. So also, did you know that there are approximately 17,000 school-age students in Texas who are in foster care on any given day? So we want to make sure we offer our services that we have to those students, but first they need to be properly identified. So on this next slide, I know you've been hearing me say foster care and student success resource guide coming soon. So it will be coming sooner than you think. So we wanted to show you the actual cover, and that we will be having 2 new chapters. So this foster care guide provides guidance for foster care liaisons. It also supplies suggestions for additional activities outside the scope of the law. So with the 2 new chapters, we go into detail about every student succeeds at the chapter 8, so ESSA. And then we also go into detail about chapter 10, the trauma-informed education. So we're giving you information and guidance to work with the students in foster care. So this will be released digitally. It will be on the highly mobile and at-risk student webpage. So when I say it'll come out soon, it will come out sooner than you think, but it will be out soon. So this will be your guide for all things foster care. So next, let's look at the chapters that are within it. So chapters in the new foster care and student success resource guide. So I want to go through each one of them to let you know different items that we're discussing within the guide. So chapter 1, we're talking about the education and students in foster care. Also, chapter 2, increasing cross-systems awareness. We want to make sure we collaborate. Number 3, chapter 3, building those cross-systems partnerships. Chapter 4, Child Welfare 101. So give you information about working with children and how they get in the system sometimes. Chapter 5, foster care liaisons. We have a whole chapter dedicated to foster care liaisons to give you information and to provide suggestions and assistance for you working with their students in foster care. Chapter 6, your school enrollment, withdrawal, and other transition considerations. Chapter 7, identifying students and maintaining confidentiality. Remember, that is very important with our students. Next, chapter 8, we talked about ESSA. Chapter 9, education decision making. So we want to make the best decisions for our students in foster care. Chapter 10, we talk about our trauma-informed school support. So items and things you can do within the school to work with our students. Chapter 11, we have our student support and interventions. In chapter 12, special education services. And chapter 13, transitioning from foster care and post-secondary opportunities. So each one of these chapters go into detail to talk about items and things we can have for our students in foster care. So training opportunities. There will be training opportunities with the new foster care guide. So Foster Care 101, which happened on October 26th, it is currently the video, the YouTube recording is located on our Highly Mobile and At-Risk webpage. So it's already there. You can go back and watch Foster Care 101 and what we presented about. So currently we will be offering more opportunities, which is Foster Care Guide Basics, and also foster care guide chapter training. So each chapter we'll go through, we'll talk about highlights, explain information, and provide you with the opportunity to ask questions during those trainings. And then our ESC foster care work group presentations. So we have ESC foster care champions at each one of our regions. So each one of the regions, there's a person who helps and assists with foster care questions and concerns. So we have a work group and we're going to discuss items and build tools and resources and build trainings to where you are able and to understand more information about foster care and assisting our students in foster care. So look for those trainings opportunities soon. And also after the release of the foster care guide, we want to engage you more and provide you the assistance needed so you can understand and assist those students. Next, let's talk about foster care PEIMS coding. So in pre-K eligibility for students in foster care, House Bill 725, it talks about expanding that free pre-K eligibility for students from other states who are currently in foster care, whether they're current or former, but they currently reside in Texas. So those students are eligible for free pre-K. So we want to make sure we have that information available for you all, the House Bill 725. And also the pre-K eligibility foster care form is hyperlinked there, but we also provided that information that gives you more detail. So with foster care PEIMS coding, we have here the actual foster care PEIMS C196 indicators. So our 0, you're going to label a student, indicate that student is not currently in the conservatorship of Texas DFPS. You're either going to code them a 1 if the student is currently in the conservatorship of Texas DFPS. You're going to give the indicator of a 2 if it's pre-K, if the student is pre-K and previously in conservatorship of Texas DFPS. And the new indicator, which is number 3, based upon House Bill 725, is the pre-kindergarten student is or ever have been in foster care in another state or territory if the child resides in this state, Texas. So we give you information. We want to make sure we provide that information for you. And House Bill 75, as previously explained, that is the reason for the new indicator number 3. Now we want to talk, we have provided you information regarding frequently asked questions, These two are actually questions that are currently on our frequently asked questions. So do students in or formerly in Texas DFPS managing conservatorship qualify for free pre-K? Yes, they do. All students who are in the managing conservatorship qualify for free pre-K in Texas. The caregivers just need to have their documentation of the foster care status upon enrollment. Also, this is updated. Do students in or formerly in foster care from another state's child welfare system qualify for free pre-K in Texas? Yes, they do. Due to the House Bill 725 that just recently passed, those students do qualify for free pre-K in the state of Texas. So we wanted to make you aware of that information. This information is currently on our foster care FAQs on our webpage. So now let's pause for some questions.
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions. Michelle asked, is the McKinney-Vento liaison for the school district responsible for foster care students?
That is up to the district of who they want to. So it is mandatory that you have a McKinney-Vento liaison and also a foster care liaison, but it's up to the district to determine that person.
Patty asked, how can we find out students are considered in kinship if CPS does not provide documentation? Typically, grandparents will just simply say that, I am raising my grandchild.
So with DFPS, they do give you a form. We call it the 2085 form. That form will provide indication that that student is in foster care. Also, there is another form of 2085, which is kinship. So if they give you the 2085 form with kinship stating that a relative has the student, that student still is declared foster care because they have that 2085 form.
Jan asked, will DFPS provide us lists of foster care students to the district so that we don't miss any?
It is good to communicate with your DFPS educational specialist. Each area has an educational specialist. You can search them either by county or by region. DFPS has different regions for my educational service centers. So that information is also located on our webpage of who you can find your DFPS educational specialist, and you can communicate with them.
So we had a follow-up on the form question with the 2085. Patty asked, who do they give the form to?
Once the student is taken into conservatorship of DFPS will have that 2085 form for that student to let you know who is the education decision maker for that student. So you'll receive that form from DFPS.
Kay asked, how do we know if a pre-K student who is coming from another state is in foster care?
DFPS actually has a foster care email address to get that information from. So that student should have the information from the previous state where they're from, and they can bring it to our state and provide the information to our DFPS so they can certify that student. And there is an email address that you can give DFPS for foster care pre-K eligibility.
So Raquel asked a question about pre-K classes, and I'm going to summarize here. I think I understand what she's asking. So what if the student qualifies, but the pre-K classes are full? Do they go on a wait list in that instance and wait for an opening, or how does that work?
Those students are eligible for pre-K. With the district, there should be some understanding of how they are to find that pre-K class for that student. And also remember, you can fill out waivers to extend those classes.
Shanice asked, is there a link that can be shared with us to locate our DFPS educational specialist?
Yes, there is on our webpage, we have a link that will guide you to the DFPS educational specialist, and we'll provide that information for you. And also there's a letter going back to our, the letter only for DFPS students. Other state students will provide official documentation for students from out of state. So we're looking for those official forms from the state's child welfare system. So if that letter may be a court order or any official documentation for those students who are outside of Texas who want to go to pre-K and meet that pre-K eligibility.
We have one more question that I can see. Sally asked, how can we identify students who are Native Americans and have been placed in foster care?
Within our state, DFPS, you can reach your educational specialist to see about the processes for determining those students and see if they are foster care.
Laura asked, where is the most current updated foster care Q&A located?
It is located on our webpage, Highly Mobile and at Risk, and we will be updating the updated version of our foster care FAQ really soon.
Holly said, going back to the pre-K question, is a charter school required to do a waiver and admit a student to a pre-K class if the class is already full, since they are technically a school of choice? That might be specific.
That might be specific. We will have to discuss that. I can get back with you and discuss that information.
Okay, great.
And if you have any questions, specific questions that way, please reach out to a foster care liaison at tea.texas.gov.
I'll provide that email to you as well. Okay, that's all of the questions right now.
Thank you, Jordan. So now let's move on to at-risk awareness and updates. So we have to the administrator letter that recently was released on October the 28th. So this letter addresses child abuse and neglect, including human trafficking, prevention awareness, and reminders and requirements. So I wanted to bring this letter to your attention. It gives more specific guidance regarding child abuse, neglect, and human trafficking. So, but what I want to bring to your attention is the new portion that was on there. So if the matter is to be reported potentially involves a human trafficking, reported to local or state law enforcement and DFPS. So you want to report it to both of those entities. Please note that for the purposes of human trafficking reporting, local law enforcement does not include your school district's police department. So we want to ensure that you, if it's a human trafficking that you are reporting, report it to local or state law enforcement and to DFPS. And this, the administrator letter is on the forms that Jordan sent out that gives the link to this actual letter. So next, let's talk about, on this slide, we have the toolkit for child abuse and child abuse prevention. So we want to show you this toolkit is a collaboration between the Children's Advocate Center of Texas and TEA. So it provides information regarding possible signs of abuse, neglect, or trafficking, and other information. So this is ways the educator can provide support. So this is a very good toolkit that is on our website also that you can download and actually use this for training purposes in your LEAs. Next, we have the no, go, and tell posters that are required for all campuses on Texas according to Texas Education Code section 38.041 and the Texas Administrative Code section 61.105. So all campuses are required to post the child abuse hotline on 11x17 poster in English and in Spanish. So you must post this in at least one high traffic area, such as hallways, above water fountains, in the gym, in locker rooms, or the counselor's office. It's in both English and in Spanish, so it should be posted around your campuses. So, and it must be posted at student eye level. The posters are located on our highly mobile and at-risk website under human trafficking and related content. So these posters are required and they are on our website. They are printable on our website. All you have to do is download them and you're able to print them off. Next, let's talk about human trafficking and prevention and awareness. Currently, we are hosting human trafficking and prevention awareness webinars. And this is the flyer, and on the flyer is the link for the registration. So we've already started. We had one webinar already. So our next webinar is December 3rd from 10:30 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. So they will provide information to help all educators that play a valuable role in prevention and awareness and understanding the signs of trafficked students. So these are webinars. We want you to sign up and attend those webinars and get the valuable information. So now let's talk about state compensatory education. So the goal for state compensatory education is to provide funding to reduce disparities in performance on assessment instruments or disparity in the rates of high school completion between educational disadvantaged students, at-risk students, and all other students. So the purpose of the state compensatory program is to increase academic achievement and reduce the dropout rate for the students by providing supplemental programs and services. So what I wanted to do was provide you with the frequently asked questions about state compensatory education. And then also on the next slides, we're going to show you what they classify as students at risk of dropping out of schools. So this is located in our Texas Education Code, section 29.081. So the D18, this slide just has A through E on it. So we won't go through all of these, but we want to show you what ways students could be labeled as dropping out of school. So also, if students do not perform satisfactorily on assessment instruments administered to students under that subchapter B, chapter 39, and who is not in previously enrolled and currently year subsequent performed on the instrument or another appropriate instrument at level equal to 1/10%, these are different ways students could be considered at risk for dropping out of school. So there are a lot of information. Let's look at if the student, next one, if the student is in pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, or grade 1, 2, or 3, and they did not perform satisfactorily on a readiness test or assessment instrument administered during the current year. So that student may be considered at risk of dropping out. If the student is pregnant or already a parent, or has been placed in an alternative education program in accordance with section 37.006 during the preceding year or the current school year, or has been expelled in accordance with section 37.007 during the preceding year or the current school year. Also, at-risk definition is if the student is currently paroled, on probation, deferred prosecution, or other conditional release. Other ways we can define at risk or were previously reported through PEIMS or if they've dropped out before, if they've been reported dropped out, is emergent bilingual student as defined by section 29.052. Also is in the custody or care of DFPS or has during the current year been referred to the department by a school official, officer, or juvenile court or law enforcement official, and also our homeless students. Now, if residing in the preceding school year in residential placement facility within the district, including a detention facility or substance abuse treatment facility, emergency shelter or psychiatric hospital, a halfway house, cottage home operation, a specialized child care home, or general residential operation. You see, they go into detail to explain any of the occurrences that may consider a student at risk. If they have been incarcerated or has a parent or guardian that has been incarcerated within the lifetime of the student. Or if the student is enrolled in a school district or open enrollment charter school or a campus of a school district or open enrollment charter school that is designated as a dropout recovery school under section 39.0548. And then regardless of the student's age, if they participate in adult education programs provided under the adult high school charter school programs. So these are all these statuses are ways that a student can be considered at risk. So I want to provide you with some dropout prevention and recovery resources. So our communities in schools is a great way to provide support to students and families. They have dropout prevention information and programs. So if you are within a district and you have community schools within your district, this is a great way to build that collaboration with the program. Also, the United States Department of Education high school graduation initiatives, they provided initiatives to promote strategies to provide students to graduate from high school. So they already have strategies on there, and this information is within your resource page. So 21st Century Learning Schools, which also consider Texas after school centers of education. So some of our districts have those 21st Century Learning, which is our after school program. So those after school programs help support dropout prevention. And then we also have on our TEA district webpage, we have a dropout prevention FAQ. So if you are experiencing issues or concerns with dropout prevention, we have provided FAQs to provide you with support.
We actually had one question before we move on. Samantha asked, are students who attend a treatment facility that is located out of the district considered at risk?
According to the state compensatory education, that student is considered at risk.
Okay, that was the only question that we had.
No problem. Now we go to Kelly for our updates.
Great, thank you. Awesome information. And I just wanted to take a moment to pause because we do have some extra time. So just wanted to see if anyone has any additional questions from any of the sections so far, anything else that's come to mind as we've been going through, whether it be the pregnancy related services information, the military connected student information, the McKinney-Vento section and information, the foster care section, or the at-risk section. If there's any questions at all, any questions that have come up.
I see one additional question from Estella. She asked, how is DFPS working with TEA to ensure that school records are going with the child or are being requested? We run across many students in the system that leave us and records are not requested, leaving us with high dropout rates. I would venture to say that many districts are in similar situations.
Gosh, Estella, that's such a great question, and just really speaks to the importance of collaborating closely with DFPS. And in this situation, we would just advise that you work closely with your education specialist to communicate the specific needs and concerns. We do meet frequently with DFPS, so I will definitely surface this question with the department as just it's something that is coming up in your region and Region 20. But I would definitely advise that school districts reach out to their education specialist and really troubleshoot those situations locally.
Estella also asked if we could talk about the state comp funding designated for McKinney-Vento students.
Sure. So as part of the legislative updates from the 87th session, House Bill 1525 updated the state compensatory education funding to include more funds for students experiencing homelessness. You can refer to section 48.104 of the compensatory education allotment of the Texas Education Code. It was amended to include section E1. And under this section, it indicates for each student who is homeless, a homeless child or youth, a school district is entitled to an annual allotment equal to the basic allotment multiplied by the highest weight provided under section B. And so the highest weight is 0.275. And so we're really excited to share that because we know that many of our LEAs utilize their state comp ed funds to help fund positions that can help support our students, especially our students experiencing homelessness. So I hope that answered the question. Again, it's section 48.104 of the Texas Education Code, and it was section E1 that was updated to include the highest weight, which is 0.275 for students experiencing homelessness.
Bobby asked, can PRS students be served remotely if there is no homebound teacher to go home and serve the student? No, the answer is no to that question. The student has to have a medical reason to be served on remote homebound or remote conferencing. If that student is served in virtual instruction under SB 15, that would be okay. But I recommend applying for the compensatory education home instruction on campus waiver that allows you to provide that service to the student on the campus as long as you're providing them transportation and keeping the ratio, the student to teacher ratio 1:4. So that is definitely an option. But if that student needs to be served at home due to a medical reason, you would still need to provide that homebound instruction. And then I see your other question, and is the use of remote learning a district decision? Are funds still considered WADA? I'm not sure what you mean by WADA. I'm sorry about that, but is remote learning a district decision? Yeah, under SB 15, and I believe remote conferencing is also a district decision. I'm not entirely sure about that actually, but I recommend going to the remote conferencing FAQ, and that'll give you all the answers that you need there. But yes, virtual instruction, full-time virtual instruction is a district decision. So if your district doesn't offer that, then the student obviously wouldn't be able to receive that virtual instruction. Weighted ADA, yes. So they would still receive PRS funding if you are serving them virtually. And the PRS FAQ goes into all of the funding specifics with virtual instruction as well. So I recommend reading that and you should be able to find your answers there. You're welcome.
Great questions. Thank you all. Okay, so some upcoming trainings that we have. So our next at-risk, highly mobile and at-risk webinar will be on January 27th from 1 to 2:30. So make sure to mark your calendars. We look forward to seeing you all again after the holidays. And then our final presentation of the year will be on March 31st, again from 1 to 2:30. So we look forward to seeing you guys at that time. We do have part 3 of our transition assistance training series that will be coming up on December 3rd, and that will be from 10 to 11:15. And we are so thankful and grateful for everybody that has joined us for part 1 and for part 2 of our transition assistance series, where we'll be walking through that policy for students experiencing homelessness and students who are in foster care step by step. Those are recorded and available on our website, as well as a training toolkit that we developed to assist you all. So please do check that out and view those previously recorded trainings if you haven't had a chance. And then join us live on December 3rd. We did also want to shout out and recognize, as Cal mentioned, it was Homeless Youth Awareness Month. It is also Military Family Appreciation Month and National Scholarship Month. So there are lots of things to recognize here in the month of November. So just wanted to shout that out and call that out. Thank you for your services to our kids and our families. And just as a reminder of where you can find our information, when you go to TEA's homepage under academics, then you'll click down to special populations, which is in the bottom right-hand corner. Then you're going to see our highly mobile and at-risk mental health supports page. And then all of the different resources that have been referenced today, you will find them under the respective program area, as well as our division newsletters. Division newsletters there in the center button, our webinars on the left, and our tools and resources on the right. We also, team members today have mentioned our inboxes. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions that you have. These are the individual inboxes that we have for each of our program areas. And as we shared earlier this year, our mental health work stream is now a part of the Safe and Supportive School Division, but we still do have this information included here just in case you have any mental behavioral health questions. Want you to know that you can reach out to Julie Wayman and the team of folks at TA working on mental health through the mental behavioral health email. You can also sign up for our listserv newsletter updates that team members have mentioned. We just had a division newsletter drop last week. And then we have our individual program newsletters as well that are just packed with excellent information. So I want to make sure that you all are getting those updates as they come out. Also, if there's anything that you'd like to see highlighted in one of our newsletters, please do let us know via our respective program inboxes. We would love to provide that information, highlight effective practices that are also happening around the state, and any questions that you have in upcoming newsletters. So please let us know the type of content you'd like to see and we will make sure to include it. And with that, we are getting to the end of our presentation today. On the left, there is a QR code where you can take a picture and provide us feedback on today's presentation. So we welcome the feedback that you have. And then on the right, you can subscribe for updates. So we showed you how you could find it on our webpage. You can also click on this QR code and it will take you right to where you need to go to sign up for updates. And as we mentioned, today's webinar will be posted on our website. We will also have an FAQ with the questions that were asked that we didn't get to today following this presentation. And we will have the presentation available for you as well. Are there any additional questions that have come in?
No, I don't believe so. Just to reiterate, everything's going to be posted on the webpage. You can click the link and it'll take you, I just put it into the chat. So everyone has access to it. And those will be posted in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. And yeah, you'll see what Jordan has set up our webpage. It's very clear. You can find the information, the recording, the FAQ all posted. The stuff that we've done in the past is also there, really easy to find. And they're full of excellent information. So please do go back and watch those as you have time. And yeah, we just thank you so much for all that you all do. Thank you for taking time with us this afternoon. Thank you for your service to students and families. We wish you the best. Thanksgiving, we are grateful for each of you. We wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your time with family, friends, loved ones, neighbors, and then also have a wonderful holiday as well, Christmas holiday. And we will see you all in the new year. Thank you all. Have a good afternoon. This concludes our presentation.